Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, James is talking about stressful weeks. Nothing abnormal about that, we all experience it. But he has a rather profound experience that helps relieve that stress in a meaningful way, and along the way discovers that our need for nature and connection are very powerful. That then leads into a deeper discussion that includes what it means to be walking alone as a woman and ways to find dopamine hits during the day at random times while you're trying to coordinate too many Zoom calls with too many, and like da-da-da-da-da. And then you get the 6 calls in a row from the weird parent, kind of thing. So you just get more and more and more wound up.
Yeah.
And, the interesting thing, I had this incredible experience so I hadn't been able to run in the woods. I've had to run on the road because it's just been solid ice. And it's finally melted and it's gone. And so I went for my first run in the woods on dirt, not snow, not ice, but dirt.
Yeah.
And it felt really, really good. And I got back and I've been playing phone tag with this guy, Jim Moyer, who I have known literally my entire life.
Huh.
He met me for the first time when I was 2 weeks old.
Wow.
And already knew my parents, very, very connected friend.
Yeah.
And we haven't spoken in 3 years.
Oh my God, how come?
Well, a lot of kind of collision of things. One, they used to own a house here in New Hampshire where we would connect. That was like home base.
Right.
And they had to sell it. So that's lost. They live in Florida.
Oh, okay.
And,
Yeah.
life pulling and, you'd make a call, but you get the phone message, they'd call you, kind of thing. And then finally, over the last couple of weeks, I was like, I have got to talk to this guy. Just, I have to do it. And so we've been playing this epic phone tag.
Wow.
Well, I get back from this run and then take a shower and literally I'm just getting my shirt on and the phone rings and it's him. And I'm like,
Wow.
And so hour and a half conversation.
Nice.
It was as if not a moment had, been between, you know what I mean? Like no time had just picked right up.
Gotta love that.
Had such a great conversation that when I hung up the phone, I was flying so high on dopamine and endorphins.
Yeah.
That it was like I was high. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, and I realized I've got to, there's very few people I can connect with on that level, right? Yeah. You're one, he's one, there's a few others.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, because I get into shutdown, and I got to not do that. So
I totally agree. Yeah. I was so looking forward to the call today, partly because we didn't have a guest, right? And it's just like, shoot the breeze,
Yeah, there's nobody getting in the goddamn way.
And the other part is exactly what you say. It's like those dopamine hits from things that aren't work related, like from like being with somebody you really, like communicating with somebody you really like, who feeds your soul in some ways, or just doing something different, like that you haven't done for a while, and just going, wow, I needed that. I didn't realize how much I needed that. For me right now, I need to go to the endowment lands, which is this, forest over on the other end of town. Like it's about a 45-minute drive. And I'm like, oh man, I don't see myself getting there for about 3.5, 4 weeks because I'm too overscheduled, right? And I don't have time. I can't fit it in, not during daylight hours, and I don't want to go there in the dark because then I'll die. There's there's wild animals in there. But it's just like what if you just rearrange things so that you could do it? I think anyway, you're right. The dopamine creating stuff, or just the endorphins, or whatever it is that makes you feel good, it's got to be deliberate. It's not going to happen by accident.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a connection too to what a little bit from what you were talking about before, where women just as a matter of fact have way more of a headwind. right?
Mhm.
And are more vulnerable to, having some pretty shitty things
Yeah.
occur to them. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting that you were just saying, "Oh, I can't go there at night." And,
Yeah.
you say wild animals, but also
Yeah.
personal safety has to
Predators,
be
yeah.
part of that. So, like, when I go running at night,
Mhm.
and I'm like way off in the woods and I've got my headlamp,
Yeah.
um, I'm just worried about the rabid raccoon that's going to jump out from behind a tree, right? Not like the weird guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
who's going
that's
to.
this you're right, it is that too. It's, I was actually walking in there once and the clocks had changed. This was probably 2 years ago or longer, and, I passed 2 women walking their dogs, and one of them said, "Oh, you're brave," because it was dark still. I just hadn't factored in the time change, and I didn't have a headlamp, so it was, like, sort of getting lighter, but I knew exactly what she meant. She meant I was walking alone in the woods.
Yeah.
In the ass end, it was the morning, but either end of the day, it's like, you're taking a chance, in urban woods particularly. There's
Yeah.
been bodies found in those woods. People have been murdered in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think there are some spaces that are safer than others.
Mhm.
But none are totally safe, right?
Yeah.
So I think about hiking, for us going up to the White Mountains and hiking. Like, I would feel safe as a woman on my own doing that for a few reasons. One is there's usually a lot of people that go hiking,
Yeah.
days and that kind of thing. But also, if somebody's going to have ill intentions, they're going to have to put in a lot of work,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To do that, as opposed to like the local town forest or
Mhm.
something like that. But even still, I can think of examples where people have run into problems,
Yeah.
and there's been issues, and so
Yeah.
it's not completely okay.
Yeah, it's something to be aware of. You ever read Wild by
Oh yeah.
Charlotte
Well, I
Gray? Yeah.
haven't read it. But I saw the movie, and I'm
Mm.
very familiar with story and all that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, there's an incident in there that's kinda like what you talk about. Really just a part of the trail where she ran into men, who were fine with fucking with somebody, like, that's because hikers can be anybody too, just like anywhere
Yeah.
else, but it is less common where you have to work really hard to get there, plus, you know, to be a predatory, hiker with other hikers, uh might be easier if you're already a hunter of animals kind of thing. Like there's all these gradations of what people will do and what they won't do. And
Mhm.
also if there's somebody with you and they were like, what are you doing? Why are you talking about raping this woman? Well, like most people wouldn't be comfortable with that, but just kind of weird confluence of
Yeah, well, she was on the Pacific Crest Trail,
Mhm.
which is a very it's a really extreme different situation. So you're probably going to get like the oddball weirdo loners,
Yeah,
uh,
true. Yeah.
and those kinds of things. And we definitely have them. Those kinds of people are everywhere, and to the extent that they're actually a threat, and just yeah, as opposed to just being weird,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I
is
know.
I mean, I've run into that, certainly. Like, there's been times when I was much younger hitchhiking and get picked up by some guy who's not right,
Yeah.
you know, okay, I got to get out of this car.
Yeah.
But ultimately it was okay. But still, it doesn't feel good. And you all of a sudden realize what it means to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And to live with that as a woman is almost, I don't want to say a constant state, because I don't know if it is a constant, but to know that there's certain areas and times and places and things where you have to have much more of a hyper, uh, vigilance
Yeah.
about yourself.
Yeah.
That
For sure. I would say the constant part depends on where you are because and how together in some ways you are because I know that downtown east side the women down there don't live very long, partly because there's a lot of drug addiction and mental illness, but also because they're not safe. They don't have beds to sleep in with the locks on the doors, so they're just not safe, so their vigilance would be constant. They would be unable to relax where unless they were high, and then they'd be more vulnerable. But for somebody like me, also I'm older now, so I'm not I'm not that interesting, but I think somebody like my daughters, both of them are, one's 19, one's 23, and there's certain places they can't go alone, in the city, because it's a city. It's a port city with a big heroin trade and violence and stuff like that. But, it's part of life. They grew up here, so they know about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I grew up that side of Philadelphia, which
Yeah.
was not like in the pit, so to speak, but
Yeah.
it was enough.
Mhm.
And our small town I grew up in has since become very gentrified and now is this bedroom community and
Mm.
expensive. But when I grew up, it was not that at
Yeah.
all. And there's a line in this one movie where these guys are from New York and they're in LA, and he says the difference between New York and LA is that in LA you've got to go find trouble. In New York, it finds you.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
there's a real truth to that, in Philly, that anywhere you are, you can get into, trouble can find you kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So you kind of get a little bit used to it. And I remember when I moved for the very, very first time, and I was used to rural areas, but at the same time, like going to Keene, New Hampshire, where I went to school and walking at night with people and feeling like, don't you guys feel a little, like we need to be a little safer here?
Mhm.
They looked at me like, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you sort of realize, oh, okay. You learn, and it just becomes part of, it's like a fish in water
Yeah.
that you keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. For sure. Even when I go chili dipping, I wait out front of my apartment building for my friend to pick me up, Karen, and, there's, like, a drug rehab. It's a hotel that was repurposed into, um, housing for drug
mm,
addicts, and, it's usually, it's still dark when I go out, and, there's lots of traffic, like, because it's a commuter artery, so there's, lots of people zipping by, but there's no pedestrians out yet, and nobody's waiting for the bus or anything usually,
mhm,
and so some guy comes meandering down the street, like, I can tell from a block, just from their body language, even if they're
right.
riding a bike, I can tell if they're, trouble
Mhm,
or if they're just a person minding their own business. It's really
right.
weird. And that's just
Yeah.
from my lens growing up in the city,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a certain, our brains are really, really, really good at detecting anomalies,
Yeah.
right? That's like what they're programmed to do
Yeah.
in a big way. And so, yeah, you see somebody coming who just doesn't, and it's like, I can't put my finger on it, but your
Yeah.
brain
Yeah.
has said
Your
the
brain
way.
knows, it can recognize the pattern. There's a certain
Yeah.
tilt of the head to meth addicts. They're tilted a certain way. Their
Mhm,
spine's of a certain configuration, like depending on what stage they are in the addiction. And
mhm,
so it's meth, heroin, crack, those are the ones around here. And you can tell. You can actually tell by the way they move, what they're looking at, like how they progress, because a lot of meth addicts are looking for meth on the ground. It's like they're fucked up, they just think everything is meth, and, they have this weird little high stepping walk sometimes, or they're anyway, it's just very
yeah. Yeah.
your brain knows it, like you say, before your mind does, because, I can see a silhouette, somebody I don't even know if they're male or female yet, and I know
Mhm,
already whether to move to the closer. I never move closer to the building because it's got a sort of a courtyard area where you could get into trouble, if somebody
mhm,
dragged you in there, but I move closer to the traffic. Sometimes I'll position myself so I'm behind a pole so they can't see me till they get really close, and then
mhm.
often my friend shows up first, and I'm just like a normal person, I'm not paranoid about that. I know enough to know that if you're vulnerable and somebody who's looking for stuff, sees you and thinks they can get away with it, you want everything about you to say you can't get away with it.
Yes. Yeah. Boy,
So
that's a great way to phrase it.
yeah, I get bigger, full posture, like, I'm watching, but I'm not making eye contact, like just
Yeah.
too close to the road for them to. get to me without being seen, stuff like that, like really specific. It's like there's this weird geometry to how not to get killed, or attacked.
Yeah. Yeah, or just fucked with,
Yeah,
right? Like I was because of the way I looked and one thing and another when I was younger, mostly less so now. I used to get fucked with constantly by people.
really.
All the time. And so you kind of, I kind of learned how to deal with it once it starts and kind of, manage. But you also learn like exactly what you're talking, and there's like a set in your eyes where
Yeah,
it's listen, it's like you have this in your eyes and it's probably your body posture and
yeah,
the way you're holding yourself where it's like, yes, you may be able to beat the shit out of me, but I'm gonna hurt you.
yeah, yeah.
This is not gonna be easy.
Yes,
So
exactly. It's not gonna
find somebody else.
Yeah, and they will, because they don't
Yeah.
want trouble. They just want well, they want trouble, but they don't wanna get hurt. So or they don't
Yeah.
wanna get fucked up, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a weird navigation. And the interesting thing is I've found even in like rural areas, it's easier to get beat up because I've seen more of like a fighting culture.
Yeah,
I guess, where the guy, and even the girls and women,
yeah,
where it's just more accepted that even these people your entire life, you live in this really small town and everybody knows everybody. If you come into conflict,
yeah,
you know, you're gonna you're gonna throw hands,
yeah.
other euphemisms. But it's a weird, very difficult, challenging quirk of human nature
Yeah,
that gets in the way of that endorphin dopamine. See,
totally. Except when you're watching Borat and the lawyer do it. We're reading about it in that hotel room scene in that Nabokov book I can never remember the title of. But anyway, yeah, you're right. It's I guess it's only funny if it's not you.
Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. We'd love to hear how we're doing, so please leave a comment, join our chat page, or send us an email at giftedunderachievers@substack.com. You can also find us on Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere else you like to get your podcasts. Also, we'd love to have you as a subscriber. It's free, going to be free, going to remain free. So please feel free to sign up. We'd love to have you. Other than that, we wish you an incredibly awesome day. Enjoy.